Neville and the Ghost Train. It was a hot summer's day on the island of Sodor. And every year, many children ride on steam trains and buses to go to the fun fair at Shen Valley. They always love it at this time of year, and so do many of the other engines and buses. One evening, Flora had just arrived at Elsbridge Station to drop off her last passengers. When she was at Elsbridge Station, she asked her driver, "What is a ghost train?" she asked. Her driver chuckled. A ghost train is actually like this little train, this kind of roller coaster train, and you go in the many tunnels. Isn't this train the same size as engines like Skarloey? She asked. No, not at all, chuckled her driver. I'm sure that engine will scare little engines like Skarloey, said Neville cheekily. Well, said Flora, didn't some invisible man who made you derail over the track point scare you once? She asked innocently. That I didn't know who it was at the time, said Neville. It was the man that closed my regulator who made me scared of crashing into Murdoch and the Express before I was able to go on the track points and derail, he said. If you'll excuse me, I'll be leaving my passengers here and off to the sheds for a rest without any scary stories in my head, he boasted and puffed off. On his way to Tidmouth Sheds, Neville could overhear the other engines talking about the ghost train. Ghosts indeed. I'm not afraid of old ghosts unlike Duck and Ryan, boasted Neville, but secretly he was worried to meet one, just in case. Later, Neville backed into the sheds boasting to the other engines that he wasn't afraid of ghosts. There's no such things as ghosts, he said. If it was in a bad dream, I would say it's all in my imagination, he said. Would you now? Grumbled Murdoch. I wouldn't say that to others such as your little self if I were you. I'm not little, snapped Neville. I'm sure ghost engines will scare little engines like Duck and Ryan over there, he said. But Ryan and Duck took no notice of Neville. Just then the Fat Controller arrived. The track inside the old tunnel. The track inside the old tunnel from Shen Valley to Elsbridge Station are damaged, and I would like Neville to take some workmen to repair the damaged track inside the tunnel. Neville groaned. Yes, sir, he said, and he puffed away. Careful the ghost engine doesn't get you, shouted Duck. I'm not afraid of any ghosts that will scare little engines like you, Duck, shouted Neville. And he spun on the turntable and puffed away to collect the workmen. On the way to Shen Valley and Elsbridge, Neville was trying not to think of unpleasant thoughts on the way, but the trucks were trying to spook him. The ghosts are coming, they said sarcastically. Neville took no notice and was trying to pay attention to the evening he wanted to have. Moments after they approached the tunnel, Neville didn't want to go in it secretly, but he had to. I don't really want to stay in there for too long, he said to his driver. Don't worry, said his driver. We'll be in there for a short while and we'll go back and have a rest. Neville hoped his driver was trying to give him confidence. When the track from inside the tunnel was mended, Neville was ready to leave the tunnel. He was almost out the tunnel when there was a sudden bang. His driver looked back. Your tender has come off the rails, he said. Now we can't go forwards or backwards. I'm afraid you'll just have to stay here tonight until help will be needed in the morning. Just what I needed, said Neville, and the driver and fireman and the workmen walked off home, while Neville inside the tunnel drifted off to sleep. Then it happened. Help! Said a voice. It was Neville inside the tunnel. He could feel himself moving. The trucks and the brake van in front of him had disappeared, and Neville was all on his own. Help! He cried. I don't know whereabouts am I in this tunnel. But then he could see some spooky ghosts floating in front of him. Then he was closing his eyes. I need to get out of this tunnel, he cried, and he raced as fast as his wheels could carry him. As soon as he approached an unknown area to an underground station. When Neville saw the station, he felt comfortable, but not for long. 4 headless people were waiting at the platform for their next train. Neville felt scared even more. He was about to yell help once again. Then he heard a familiar whistle. It sounded like Murdoch. Murdoch, he said, it's you. And indeed it was. Then he realised the ghostly figure, which seems to look like Murdoch, was going too fast. No more, no more, cried Neville. He shut his eyes before the ghostly figure of Murdoch could crash into Neville. The next morning, Neville could feel himself backing out of the tunnel and hearing a pair of familiar voices. Wake up, Neville, yelled his driver and fireman. Your tender has been lifted back on the rails. We can go back to the sheds now for a rest. Neville was thankful that he was going home and was very thankful to be getting out of the spooky tunnel he had experienced in his dream. That evening, Neville came back to the sheds feeling very shaky. Did the ghost engine get you? Teased Murdoch. Or did he try to scrap your tender? Teased Duck. Or turn you into a tank engine? Said Ryan cheekily. There's no such things as ghosts, grumbled Neville. Can't you lot just get out of my heads already? He said. But secretly he was more scared of what he experienced. We know what it was, don't we?